Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the People Card Shop as well as the Top Choice Gaming online case tournament that happened this past weekend. It had over 100 players, OP09 meta, and honestly a really good time. It's also involved by doing the live stream with it with Malik, which I really do appreciate the opportunity for it, and I really do love this meta. I think it's very strong. I know a lot of people are getting ready for Card Fest next weekend too, and I think it was a really good primer and testing situation for people for that too. So if you guys want any of these deck lists, you can find them on my website, Eggman Events, which is linked to the description. You can also find the live stream linked to the description too if you guys want to watch that right now as well. And then also just shouts again to People's Card Shop and Top Choice Gaming for letting this happen. Also, People's Card Shop starting the new year, so not this Monday, but next Monday. They do have online Monday webcam events, so you can check that out on their website, which is going to be linked in the description too. They've been wanting to fire these and make them pretty regular as the as One Piece has been going on, so they're going to start that with the first Monday of 2025. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already, and let's just jump on into this one. So it was again over 100 players, 108, 6 rounds of Swiss, which could have been 6 or 7. Just the pair down lost on round 6, so we ended up doing kind of 1 round short, right? Like it's almost guaranteed for 7, but not quite for this one. And of the top 16, we did have 5 Doflamingos, 3 Shanks, 2 Lucci, 2 of the Stardeck 13 Luffy, 1 Teach, 1 Betty, 1 OP05 purple Luffy, and 1 copy of Bonney as well. So still pretty diverse. I think that Doflamingo still is the best deck in this format, but not by a super wide margin. Shanks did win this event too, which is the same as what happened for Booster Box, so I do think Shanks is in a really good position for our meta right now. Teach was able to top this event just barely, but still was able to, and that's kind of, you know, less than what I think people were expecting going into this format, but I think people are getting adjusted to the best way to play it. I think it's so matchup dependent for how you play Teach a lot of the time that you do have to kind of work on the matchup, see where you get your little value boosts, and that's going to be a big thing moving forward. And also Betty, which I know a lot of people have been saying this is like one of the best decks in the format. It's been slept on a little bit, and we'll talk about it when we jump over there too. But when we're looking at also just the the decks that were brought, 75% were between Teach, Luffy, purple Luffy, or sorry, either Luffy, right? Either purple Luffy, the Rob Lucci, Red Shanks, as also the Doflamingo. So I think honestly the top 4 decks are definitely Dofi, Red Shanks, purple Luffy, and the Rob Lucci. I think Rob Lucci is like slightly better than purple Luffy, but it's pretty close. And I think these are definitely like the top 4. This is definitely the top 1 with Dofi, and then these are the 3 following it up as well. So, but we are going to go over the top placing list for each one of the leaders, starting off with our first place list, which is going to be the Shanks here. This is Dan's version of the build here, and I think Shanks has been growing on me a little bit. I did a lot of testing, and from more of like a Markle mindset, and like it didn't transfer very well based on, at least not as well as I thought it would. But when I've been playing more and more of this, I can kind of understand how this deck works and our gameplay, and what's kind of important with the deck too. I will say there's nothing I think too surprising with how this build works either. The fact that we're playing just a good amount of 2Ks. I think we're playing 12 of them. Yeah, or sorry, 16 2Ks. These all 4 here, the Otama, Sanji, Hongo, and Lime Juice. So quite a bit of the defense side there. We are playing the Marco 5-drop and the Ace. We are not playing any Utas, which I've been liking a little bit more for my builds, just because even if it bottom decks some of our better cards, the fact that we're able to use it to get to the late game, but also just make it so like we sometimes like having a 1-drop that can attack into other 1-drops is actually invaluable in some situations. So I would generally like to do that, especially if we're playing silvers. There are some times where like they have a 5K, I use the -3, and then I can attack my 2K into it. That sometimes shows up a little bit, but other than that, I think this deck is in a good spot. I do think that there are always like some consistency issues with it, so you do have to kind of hard draw into your top end. But when we're running so much of our top end, right, 4 Beckman, 4 silvers, 4 dragons, 4 Shanks, 2 of the Goldie Roger, you're definitely going to see it, and maybe at times you're going to see a little bit too much of it, which is why we're playing the Bad Manners Kick Course. We are playing the Red Hawk as well, which is able to do a good amount of like early game kind of defenses to get you into the late game a little bit more successfully. I do think there's also like this kind of thing where you have Shanks 10-drop and also Gum Gum Red Hawk, where you can use the effects to you like if you play Shanks on 10 and then the next turn you leave 2 open, you can get rid of like a 6k technically, because it's the -1 from the leader, -1 from the 10 drop, and then you can get rid of it with Red Hawk. So something that I think that showed up on stream somewhere, so that does help impact the matchup a little bit. And I think the deck is just in a really good spot as well. So here's the deck here. Congratulations to Dan for their finish with Shanks. And then next up, we've got Teach. So this is Mark's version of the build here. And I know Mark's been playing a lot of this specifically. I believe I saw him in the booster box treasure cup playing the deck as well, if I remember correctly. But I had a lot of people asking for the list during the stream. And now that we see it, right, it's nothing too crazy, right? It's pretty standard for I think what the deck is looking for. Nothing too crazy, not even putting like anything like Jack, or like all these cards are Blackbeard pirate cards, right? The only exception is like Laboon, right, as well as the finger pistol, right? Everything else is a Blackbeard pirates. And I think what I saw from Mark playing this deck specifically is more of his play style into some matchups. So big thing that I noticed is that like even if like it's good, sometimes you really have to decide when you want to use your discard 1 from Teach, because the discard 1 is sometimes the trade is not in your favor, right? You do have to just kind of know every matchup that you're going on into and like what their best play is, and if you want to try to mitigate it depending on what it is, if it's based on an on play or not. But I also do think that some decks are just not either caring about their on plays as much, or they're just like too aggressive in the way. So the fact that Doflamingo is really present is a little bit tough for Teach, because I do think that's a bit of a rough matchup. I also think that if Shanks is going to be more popular like it is here in the States, I don't think it's an impossible matchup, but it's definitely a matchup that's a little bit tricky at times, since their 10 drop can kind of at least trade or go evenish with your Marshall.D.Teach. Sure, you can play, if they play Shanks, you can play your Teach to stop it. If they play a second, it's whoever has more 10 drops at the end of the day, right? I think that kind of depends, like tilts the matchup in one of the players' favors too. So we obviously can find our 10 drops a little bit more consistently, since we have more searches for it compared to what Shanks is normally doing. But I think Teach is still good. I think it's going to kind of, it started off really hot and then like rebounded to low. And so I think it's going to be in the middle. I expect it to top like once or twice most events. And I think more and more people are getting accustomed to how to play as it, right? At the beginning of the format, I think you got a lot of free wins from people not knowing how to play into it. Then people adjusted to that. So we kind of have to adjust to just being really strong players with how we use Teach as well. But this is Mark's version of the build. Congratulations for their top with Teach. And the next up, we've got Betty. So this is Johan's version of the deck here. And again, I have had a lot of people tell me like this is their I'm sleeping on this deck. This is not, this is something that should be very viable. And one thing I will mention is that I'm not a super aggressive player, so this is not necessarily my play style in general. But I do respect that Betty is really good in a lot of matchups, especially like 4-life matchups where you're not able to like just defend the board a lot. I do think the amount of aggression is fantastic. And if you're playing against a little bit more of a setup deck, or a deck that doesn't have a lot of early game removal, you can super take advantage of it, right? The big things we have are like the 4-drop Emporio. Being able to play out a body is fantastic. Being able to play Karasu off it is also very good. If your opponent doesn't remove this, the amount of pressure you get off this is fantastic. We have a lot of new cards from OP09 as well, including just like another Karasu, just a block you get to play for free. Kuma, which is a 2k, you get to play for free. We also have this Betty. On play, if you have 2 or less life, you get to draw 1 card on play, and then you can also play it for free off of our life, which is great too. We're also playing the Bonney, which is a really interesting ad for this deck in general. So this is Dawn times 1 your turn, once per turn. When your opponent loses a life, draw 2 cards and discard 1. So it does give you a +1 and helps you find your, go deeper into your deck. So I think that's an interesting one for it as well. We have Don't Underestimate a Miracle, which does like let you play something off of your hand if you trigger it off of life. So that's good. Otherwise, it's just like a +2k. And then also the Flame Dragon King. So being able to set up your life, which is really interesting for the decision for this one. But obviously, like there's so many times with Betty that if our first life is a trigger we get to play for free, it can just kind of warp the game in our favor a lot of the time. Otherwise, it's just kind of in a bad spot. So I think that's a good, like it's a one of, but it's a nice little one of. And then kind of our top end, we have the new Koala as well as the 8-drop Dragon. This card's been just really relevant, I think, in a lot of decks lately. I think that it's great in Shanks. I know that some people play it in Red Purple Luffy at times. I think it's really good in this deck, even though it's like a little bit high end. The fact that it's a Revolution army that can just help you just get enough pressure at the end of the game, I think is invaluable for this deck too. So I definitely play this at like 2 or 3 copies, and I think it's really helpful for Betty to kind of close out games too. But this is the build here. I think Betty's going to be kind of present for. It's going to be interesting to see how present in general, but I do think it is viable in this meta. And congratulations to Johan for their finish with it. And then next up, we've got Blue Doflamingo. So this is Jahrel's version of the deck, and obviously this is the boogeyman, where there's not a lot of diversity, I think, in building for this card, for this deck. I think it's like 45 cards, and you have a little bit of text or some ratios for it. The tech ratios for this one is like we're playing 2 Raging Tigers, we're playing 2 Perfume, which I think, we started off the format where I saw a lot of people playing only like 1 of this card, and then people are going up to 2 of it. So 2's probably fine. I think there's a lot of decks that just straight up lose to this if you get them down to 0. So it's a good win condition, and it's searchable, and the trigger off life isn't terrible either. So I think that's good too. And then the rest of the deck as well. So we're only playing 12 cards without counter, which is pretty good. Just the Boa, the Weevil, the 2 events, as well as I think that's actually it. That's really it for that deck, right? So that's pretty good. I know that some decks go a little bit harder on the events. Some people on the other, conversely, don't want to play any events either. But I do think, I don't know. What can I say about Dofi? I haven't said already. It's very present. It's going to do very well. There's going to be a lot of people on it, and a lot of people doing well while they're on it. But no real kind of diversity on how the deck's built more times than not, just some kind of tech choices. But this is Jahrel's version of the build. Congratulations for their top with the Doflamingo. And then to wrap up the top 8, we do have Adrian's version of the Lucci. So this is I think this is kind of rebounded back from kind of the beginning of OP09. I think a lot of people were either wanting to test the new black deck on the street, which was the Marshall.D.Teach, but then also to test out, because so many people are playing Teach, they are afraid to play Lucci, since we are so dependent on our on plays, right? Obviously, the 8-drop Moria has a really good on play, and the fact that it plays cards that then also get their on plays just generally make it tough when you don't get those during your turn, right? But I do think that you still can kind of adapt and play around the deck as well. I also think that adding the Kaku from OP03 is a really good card for this deck. It just means that with leader attack, and you can play Kaku, you can get rid of a 4 cost, which is really good into specifically Doflamingo, which obviously is going to be really present. And the fact that we are able to kind of keep our curve with removal, I think is really great for Lucci as well. I also do think the 3 cost Brook, which was something that a bit of a decision point, I think, in OP07 and OP08. This card is just completely needed right now. 4 copies is the minimum you need, and it's just so good at removing and being like a weird body that your opponent kind of has to answer, and if they don't, it gets like another removal off like an Ice Age or something. So it's really tough to deal with this card. It works really well with the deck, and it can get a lot of value as well. So other than that, we're not playing anything too crazy. We're only playing 8 events with the Ice Age and the Tempest Kick. We're playing 2 copies of Jack and also 2 copies of the 9-cost Kaido, which I really do like this card in this meta right now, and then just kind of the rest of it as well. I'm surprised we're playing this 4-drop Kaku instead of the Who's Who, since I feel like the removal from that Who's Who is a little bit better when we can use it with our Lucci, but sometimes I feel like the cost reduction is probably just a little bit worth it too. But this is Adrian's version of the build. Congratulations for their top with the Lucci. And then moving on from there, we do also have Austin's version. Sorry, this is the end of the top 8. Austin was top 8 as well, right? Yeah, strictly 8th place. Yeah, my apologies. But Austin's got the purple Luffy. This deck's been getting more and more popular. I think the fact that the star deck from the OP08 meta helped this deck out a lot, and now we have just kind of like another version of it. Like the fact that this was supposed to be used for a different purple Luffy, the black and purple Luffy, and we're able to just take advantage of all the cards, I think is really, really good for this deck. It's always been just like generally good, right? The fact that we get the most consistent ramp in the game and the early card advantage does help you. It does mean that's a little bit trickier to defend later in the game, but if you're able to put like a lot of pressure and play things on curve and tempo, this deck is really tough to beat a lot of the time, especially with the, Luffy Taro is just so good at being able to gain a lot of advantage, right? A 7-drop 8K that's able to play a 4-drop or a 6K body generally off of either the Zoro or the Sangoro, which both these cards draw. Zoro immediately, or Sangoro, if you don't answer this, it draws every turn for the rest of the game, which is really strong. We also do have like the Onami, which is helpful for being able to just be a defender. We are playing a good amount of blockers. No queens in this build either, which I think is a bit interesting. And then our top end is 4 copies of the Linlin, which I do like the defense properties of this card. The fact that we take so many cards out of our hand to get to the late game, but then we can play Linlin. And it's really good against specifically Doflamingo as well. The fact that we can just play this, we get to build our board a little bit wider, and then they get a smaller board. And we like, even if we give them back to life, the fact that most of the time we have like another Lin, or we have like a Luffy Tara or something else to kind of capitalize on it, I think all that's very strong and helps us with the game as well. And then that's really generally it for the deck. We are playing one of the secret rare. I think that's fine. We are playing some uses Captain Kidd, so if we go second and we have nothing better to do, we can play this on 5, which I think is great. And then, you know, we can Luffy Taro, gain a Don back, like we just get some Don stuff. We're only playing 2 copies of Mr. 2. I think some people kind of went into this format thinking this was a 4 of guaranteed, and I don't think that right now. It is a nice card that we probably want to run a couple copies. I think 2 is the right number. You can play 3 or 4 if you want to, but if you don't have any copies of this card, I still think you can play Purple Luffy, since I do know that this is a bit of an expensive card right now. So, but I don't think it's hard required, and if you don't have the copies of it, you can definitely play something else in its slot too. So you can make sure to check that out too. But in general, I think this deck is good. There are obviously, like, it's a pretty fast deck, and if you aren't able to find your consistency pieces, or find like your easy piece, like the fact that we have 1-drop Law on Zoro does make this deck a little bit more consistent from where it has been previously. But sometimes it does just kind of, you know, if your opponent's able to defend or stabilize, you don't really have a way to get out after that. But I think this deck is good. It's going to be very good too. And congratulations to Austin for their finish with it. And next up, we've got Star Deck 13 Luffy. The leader just won't die. I think there's just been so many times since release, right, where it's like, oh, this is the black and yellow Luffy killer, right? We saw it with like I don't know, the fact that like Doflamingo came around, right? There are some times in like red purple Law will be rough for it, right? Like there's ways to get around like the Sabo, and I think there's a lot of ways, particularly right now, but I do think this is still a really strong deck that if it adapts correctly to the format, you're able to get a lot of success as well. So we had Teach come out into this one, which again, we do play 8-drop Moria, which is a hard counter to that card, but we do have a lot of ways to get advantage outside of that. So I do think that matchup is not strictly, 90-10 in Teach's favor. It's something that we've adapted to a little bit to help us with. We do have a lot of activate mains that we do get to. Like the fact that we still get to use our 2-drop Sabos and Luffy's is strong enough for us, because we are able to, be a 7k leader, 9k leader, even if it's like a little bit less cost efficient for us. We also have cards like Rygo, which we are able to not only get the removal, but sometimes we're stuck at like 2 life, and we can use this to go from 2 to 1, and then use a 5-drop Luffy effect to go to 0. There's some like weird times where this actually comes into use to get down to lower life totals, which I think is really good. We're playing a single copy of Ice Age as well, and we're also playing I've been seeing a lot of people be a little bit more creative with what blockers they're additionally running in the deck. So we do have like the Nami, which I think has been more popular lately. We also have the Shirahoshi from OP08, or sorry, Starter Deck 8. So it's a blocker, but also give it to one of your opponent's characters -4 cost during this turn. So there's like some weird times where you can play this, and then you can use Luffy's effect. The fact that we can get rid of an 8 cost, which means you can get rid of a Moria, or something like a little bit smaller than that, means that that's very good, I think, for the deck too. And that helps you get some advantage as well. So again, more people are playing techs, so no room for aces in these decks either. But I think the deck is in a really good spot, and at least in a better spot than people are expecting. I think this will still do well in this format. People are adjusting to it. It's always been a really gameplay centric deck, and because of that, once people start adjusting with it, I think they're going to be doing better than where we're at. So this is the build from Nathan. Congratulations for their finish there. And to wrap it up, we've got Jordan's version of Bonney. And if you guys are an older Bandai card player, you probably know Jordan Markle from Dragon Ball Super. So cool to see him at this event. I didn't expect that, and do quite well with it too, with the top 16 with Bonney. And Bonney is definitely a grindy deck compared to a lot of other ones. We're trying to get value. We try to get a lot of stunning our opponent's cards, and just try to lock them out of a lot of gameplay. So we are playing 8-drop Kid, which I still think is a really good card in this format. There are some decks that really can't answer that, which I think is really good. Carrot is still really good against Doflamingo, and I think that if we're trying to posture against Doflamingo, it's not a bad game plan, because it's usually a quarter to a third of the room most of the time, so you will be able to play against a lot of Doflamingo players with Bonney, so that being able to adjust that matchup I think is strong. 3 copies of Hody, since this can win you the game in a lot of situations. We also have the 9-cost Shanks. I really love this card. It's so good in so many situations that it's just strong. It's just really, really strong for what it does, which is cool. And then we also have 4 copies of Doflamingo. Notably, we're also playing the double searchers with the Bonney and Baby 5. And then nothing else for 4. So since we're not playing, I think like it's really difficult to find value in a lot of decks against with a 3 or 4 drop, since like Law exists and there's like a little bit of like low to the ground removal that exists in this game right now. Because of that, I think just being able to use your Baby 5 searcher and your Bonney searcher just to get card advantage in the early game and prevent your opponent from, still like absorb some of your opponent's attacks and make them have to deal with it, is better than just playing like a 4-drop Rouge that just gets removed, with the 4 Dawn investment, right? So I think the double searcher makes sense more than usual because of that. So that's very strong. We just have to hopefully find our Cavendish. I think this card is like a little bit trickier to remove in some decks, and that does get a lot of value, which helps a lot too. But I don't know. I think Bonney's in a good spot. I think there's not a lot of people who are on it specifically right now, but it's something that will continue to do well in this format. It has a lot of good matchups, and if there's someone who's really strong with the deck, I think they're going to do very well with it as well. So this is Jordan's version of the build. Congratulations for their finish there. And that's going to be it for this video. Again, if you guys want any of the deck lists, you can find them linked in the description on Eggman Events. You can also find the live stream for this one. And then again, thank you very much to the People's Card Shop, Top Choice Gaming, my co-commentator Malik, and just this entire event. I was really happy about it, and I'm happy I was able to be part of it as well. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.